Hello guys, this is Phil James. So today I'm going to tell you something about respiration. Before we get started, I just want to ask you just a question. Do you think we really can bring back the dead? If you think we can do that, just let me know what do you think about it. Okay, let's go. Sarah Connor died on lovely Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia. It was 3 June 2012, and the 36-year-old financial analyst had decided to take a solo bike ride, as he often did on weekends. As the ride progressed, however, Connor sensed that something was wrong. He pulled over to the side of the road, took off his helmet, and slumped to the ground. His heart stopped beating, and he stopped breathing. He was having a sudden cardiac arrest. The odds were on Connor's side that day. Each year, around 300,000 people in the U.S. suffer cardiac arrest. Most victims die. Of those who make it to the hospital, 85 to 90% live in a box or a bag. But instead of adding to that story figure, Connor was about to join a group of people who are changing our notions of mortality. In some communities, up to 30 and 40% of arrest victims leave the hospital alive. One likely difference is that those likely few wound up at the hospital that implements the latest practices in resurrection science. Connor made it to one such resurrection facility at the University of Pennsylvania, but his route to get there was circuitous. The emergency crew first rushed him to a local hospital, but staff there were unsure about what was wrong with Connor. He was hardly the typical heart attack victim, and didn't know what course of action would be that aid his survival and recovery. Connor's wife and daughter had by then arrived. She recalled hearing about resurrection research taking place at a nearby university, and insisted Connor be transferred. By that evening, he was admitted to the University of Pennsylvania's hospital, where Benjamin Albana, a physician and clinical research director at the Center for Resurrection Science, ordered that Connor should undergo a 24-hour cooling treatment to reduce the inflammation and slow metabolism, two components that seem to be a key for helping the body recover from resurrection injury. Following treatment, Connor lay immediately, included coma for several days, during which time he received post-arrest care, including blood pressure support, cardiac cancellation, and mechanical ventilation. On Friday, he regained consciousness. Cases like Connor's are far from unheard of, and they are helping physicians and scientists who are specializing in resurrection tease out the mechanisms governing the death process. Their ultimate goal is to halt and reverse that process. When you are freshly dead, your brain isn't necessarily irreversible or damaged yet, explains Sam Perlman, a critical care physician and the director of resurrection research at Stony Brook University School of Medicine in New York. You have to both die and have a brain death rarely to be dead. In fact, as new technology and knowledge of the body enhances our proficiency at resurrection. It is transforming our ideas about the nature of death itself. Researchers are coming to understand that death causes more on a sliding scale than at a single moment. In other words, we often do not die at all at once, even if the heart has stopped. The body can remain alive for hours, some parts even days. At this point, we got two domains: the slightly dead and very dead. For lack of better terms, says the ballad, were not quite dead yet. It's definitely getting blurry. Death is a necessary cover for every living thing, and as a sole species within, capable of convincing of its own demise. It's constantly on our minds. Yet, the more we know, the more we realize how crude our understanding of death actually is. Most people consider death as a single moment. A person is a prison, and then he or she is not. It is not a turning off of a life situation, typically registered as the moment that the person's heart stops beating. Today, around 95% of the death certificates uses, this event to know the time of passing. And for the vast majority of human history, this thinking reflected reality. If a person's heart stopped beating, he or she had been issued a death sentence. There was no bringing them back. And we have to mention near-death experience in this case. Anyone who claims to have such experience will tell you they saw the tunnel of life and their beloved ones who have passed away. This has happened multiple times, and what they saw is true. When someone is near death, their body goes through a variety of rapid changes. This can include deadline in vital functions, such as decreasing heart rate, leading to less oxygen going through the body and being sent to the brain. Some people may also experience a decrease in body temperature, and their breathing can become irregular or shallow. However, it is not just the limbs and organs of the body that go through a number of changes, but the brain also. One study from the University of Michigan observed that the brains of people who are dying show a significant surge in activity. The study, which looked at 4 patients taken off life support, found that 2 of the brain showed a burst of activity just moments before the person passed away. Furthermore, the activity observed appeared to be similar to the activity that takes place during conscious thought. This activity is produced through gamma waves, commonly known as the brain waves. Researchers noted that there was a 300 times increase in these waves. One of the patients involved in the study. What can we do to resurrect the dead? There are 4 ways that include cryonics, digital ghosts, the extinction, and medical resurrection. Cryonics is a low-temperature freezing, usually at 196 degrees Celsius or 320.8 degrees Fahrenheit of a human corpse was served dead, with the hope that resurrection may be possible in the future. Cryonics is regarded with skepticism within the mainstream scientific community. It is generally viewed as pseudoscience and has been characterized as quirky. What is the digital ghost? In his 1980 book Mind Children, Robotics Hans Microwave proposed that a future supercomputer might be able to resurrect long-dead minds from the information that still survived. For example, such can include information in the form of memories, film strips, social media interactions, modeled personality traits, personal favorite scenes, personal notes and tasks, additional citations needed, medical records, and genetic information. Ray Kurzweil, American inventor and futurist, believes that when his concept of singularity comes to pass, it will be possible to resurrect the dead by digital resurrection. Such is, one approach in the concept of digital immortality, which could be described as resurrecting deceased as the digital ghosts or digital avatars. In the context of knowledge management, virtual persona could aid in knowledge capture, retention, distribution, access, and use, and continue to learn. Issues include, post-modern privacy and potential use of personalized digital twins and associated systems by big data firms and adversaries. Related alternative approaches of digital immortality include gradually replacing neurons in the brain with advanced medical technology such as, nanotechnology as a form of mind uploading. Distinction enabling an organism that either resembles or is an extinct species is also known as resurrection biology and often described as working on resurrecting dead species, medical resurrection. Modern medicine can, in some cases, revive patients who died by some definitions of dead, or declared dead. However, under most definitions of death, brain death, this would mean that the patient wasn't truly dead. Most advanced versions of such capabilities may include a method system under development reported in 2019, BrainX, that could, partially revive brains hours after death to the degree of brain circulation and cellular functions. It shows that the process of cell death is a gradual, stepwise process, and that some of those processes can be, either postponed, preserved, or even reversed. A similar oxygen perfusion system under development. Oxygen as can restore, that is on a cellular level, multiple vital organs 1 hour after death, during which the body had prolonged warm insomnia. It could be used to preserve donor organs, but may also be developed to be useful for revival in medical emergencies by buying more time for doctors to treat people whose bodies were starved of oxygen, such as those who died from drowning or a heart attack. There is research into what happens during and after death, as well as how and to what extent patients could be revived by the use of science and technology. For example, one study shows that in the hours after human death. Certain cells in human brain are still active. However, it is thought that, at least without any life support line systems, death is permanent and irreversible after several hours. Nowadays, even in cases where revival was still possible shortly after death. A 2010 study notes that physicians are determining, death tests only for the permanent cessation of circulation and respiration because they know that irreversible cessation follows rapidly and inevitably once the circulation no longer will restore itself spontaneously and will not be restored medically. Development of advanced life support measures, including cardiopulmonary respiration or CPR, and positive pressure ventilation (PPV), brought the interdependence of cessation of brain function and loss of respiration and circulation, and the traditional definition of death into question. And further developments upend more definitions of mortality. Maybe death isn't the end, or maybe it's just, the boundary we haven't fully understand. What do you think? Just leave your comments below.